Well, Courtney Walsh, great to catch up with you. Of course, leading tennis writer in this country. Walshy, I'm still in disbelief what we have witnessed, and here we are. We can't even leave our shores. If there's one US Open that you'd love to have been at, it's a qualifier winning and Novak on the verge of history. I mean, this is the one that you can feel that New York crowd the last 2 weeks. And Emma Raducanu, I'm trying to think of an Australian female player ranked in the 300s in the middle of the year, even having a dream of winning a Grand Slam. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
It really, it's a tournament that I think we've seen tennis truly come back. We had a great Wimbledon, great to see the French Open, crowds at the Australian Open. Apart from that shutout, but to see the atmosphere, you could feel it through the screens watching from Australia, watching from Melbourne this morning. We know what it's like to be there live when a big match is happening. But for a historic moment like we saw with Emma Raducanu, Leylah Fernandez playing, I thought a tremendous final. I know it was straight sets, but I thought it was a really wonderful match to watch. I thought there was a lot to like from both women. Clearly, stars of the future, but stars of the present, which is something extraordinary. You couldn't have predicted what Emma Raducanu's done from Wimbledon, then through to, I think it was Chicago in the lead into the US Open. It's just an astonishing 2 to 3 months of tennis. A Grand Slam champion at 18, the first since Virginia Wade. Wonderful to see. Great to see Virginia in the stands. Rocket Rod's going to be there if Novak equals what he did a couple of times in the 60s. So, Walshy, I was just thinking about Raducanu today and the backstory. So it has been told a fair bit as we've got to know her more and more. But I think Chris Evert summed it up with a comment. It might have been Pam Shriver. They're having a conversation on ESPN about an hour ago. In that match she played against Tomljanovic at Wimbledon, fourth round, if Murray had been knocked out. So she was the British hope standing. They're riding this wave of a girl. They were even looking through the program guide. Who is she? What's her background? And she goes off with some breathing difficulties. And it was so rare to see a player not even come back out on court. That was quite peculiar. And then, 2 months later, she wins her first major. I mean, it's phenomenal. But the maturity, I mean, their speeches were as good as their play. I mean, these two girls are going to give us some enormous value. And the other thing I thought of when we're analysing Ash Barty, because you get asked about Ash a lot, just world number one. There's the expectation every time she comes in that she should just be winning. But this is what women's tennis is. It is so open. It's incredible. I mean, it's like equalisation in footy. I mean, everyone's getting their opportunity. Well, I think in the post-match interview where Emma was asked, and she said, any one of us on court can win this title. Anyone in the tournament can win a title. It's and I think that's a great thing for the sport. I think to have the variety of champions, the different caliber of champions, to see women at 18 performing with the distinction that they both played with the variety, the power, the poise that they showed on the court is wonderful. But we see it all the way through to players in their 30s as well. To have Serena, who wasn't there this year, but to be still making Grand Slam semi-finals and finals as she gets towards 40, to have Venus Williams, on court this summer in the States. She wasn't there for the US Open as well, but at 41, it's a wonderful sport where you can have people competing against each other over a 23-year time span. It's astonishing. The composure of Raducanu throughout the last fortnight, well, actually throughout the last 3 weeks, because we shouldn't forget she obviously came through qualifying. So 10 matches without dropping a set, winning through some tight moments, and there were some particularly tight moments in that final, and even the last game where she's gone to sit down after sliding, scraping the knee, a decent trickle of blood. She can say that she's left it all out there, certainly. But to be able to come back from what happened at Wimbledon, where she was pilloried by an obnoxious British commentator, Piers Morgan, belittled, I thought, by him, to then recover, put it all behind her, produce a performance like that. Truly, it's a performance of a champion. And I thought the other good part of a couple of post-match chats I've heard is obviously the attention's going to come now, and the expectation. I mean, everyone's going to want to have a crack at knocking off the US Open
champion. So her ranking obviously has skyrocketed, 23 in the world. But those in tennis who understand, and so you listen to Chris, you listen to Pam and a couple of others, Mary Jo Fernandez today, hoping that she can still just enjoy being a teenager at 18, because from this point onwards, it's not all going to be rosy. There's going to be ups, downs. Who knows if she'll even get back to making another final. You just have no certainty around that. But actually still being able to, really, really enjoy what you're doing.
There are no guarantees at all in sport, as we know. There's no guarantees that your health or your body will stand up, and particularly with teenagers. But I think, as you get towards 18 and 19, and look, let's face it, winning something like this, the team that will be behind her, she will have, she's not ranked 100 now, so there's some cash that's coming in terms of prize money. The endorsements will be significant as the first, I think, British player to win, the first British woman to win since Virginia Wade. And she'll be the face of so many companies. So the team will be there in terms of being able to help her with her. She'll have her own physio, she'll have her own coach, obviously, but she'll have a broader team behind it. But it's also the off court that she needs to be able to handle, as you've touched on. And look, we saw Naomi Osaka have some issues there in terms of her mental health this year, and at different stages. We saw Ash walk away when she was a younger woman. Admittedly, she'd made Grand Slam finals in doubles, but not in singles. But there was still that burden of dealing with hype, dealing with expectation, dealing with your own belief. There'll be pitfalls along the road for her, but none at the moment. And it's an amazing start to her career. And as long as she has the right people around her, and clearly to get to this stage, she has to have had the right people around her already. But as long as those people around, and it's the same for Fernandez, can protect and can guide and can help her along the way, what a future ahead.
Yeah, team is key. We see that. We talk about it a lot in tennis in an individual sport. So a bit on Fernandez. I mean, it's been well documented the calibre of player that she beat to get to the final, the adversity she faced in some of those matches. So we knew a lot more about Layla while she, having won her first WTA tournament earlier this year. She was already inside the top 100. A very good junior. We saw it for our very own eyes, making a final here in Australia. So the pedigree was good tennis system. Incredible, 2 years after Andreescu, another 19-year-old Canadian, makes a final. We're going to see a lot more of her and, her personality. I mean, that ovation today, it went for about 5 minutes before she even spoke into the microphone. That's how much the New Yorkers fell in love with it.
And even her demeanour on the court, I thought, was superb under pressure. Clearly, she showed that throughout some of the wins that she had, to take out Osaka, to take out Kerber, to play with such distinction sort of through to the final. Down in the second set, trailing 5-2 to keep that alive for a bit longer, to have the chances to sort of go to 5-4. The way she revved up the crowd, the way she was smiling, through some adversity, she certainly did not, by any way, shape, or form, diminish her reputation, I thought, in the final. And it was one that really built throughout the year. And you looked, I mean, to some extent, she's had great junior credentials. Her performances this year were not outstanding. If you had a look through her history leading into the tournament, yes, she'd won the event in Mexico, which was a tremendous breakthrough WTA title. But elsewhere, she was getting beaten, first and second rounds. She lost to Alison Risqué in Cincinnati, 6-2, 6-2 in the first round. So to be able to respond and to get on a run like she did, outstanding. She's got great court craft. Her defense, I thought, today as well was outstanding. She certainly made Emma hit more balls, I think, than what Emma had probably hit throughout the run from qualifying. She really made her play and hit an extra shot. To her credit, those shots were outstanding. There'll be improvement in her as well. Today, the serve probably wasn't quite as strong as what it had been elsewhere, but that's also playing against a person who returned, with power and precision. I mean, right from the first point, the double-handed backhand, the off backhand winner in the first point of return at One Love, it showed what she was up against. But I thought she had a tremendous tournament, and it's great to see a lefty as well. It's a nice variety to add into. Hopefully, we see top 10, top 20 players.
Yeah, we love watching the lefties play. So we thought probably, Coco Gauff, if there was a teenager that was going to emerge first and maybe make a Grand Slam final, it was Coco. I mean, 17 in the world. She's already on the verge of the top 20. And here's two girls that get a little leapfrog, but with Coco, with these two now. There's plenty more that are coming. I mean, it's an exercise I'm going to do this week, Walshy, and trying to forecast ahead, because all the different winners, finalists, semi-finalists, quarter-finalists we've had at the Slams over the last few years. I think this is an exercise we all need to sit down and do this week, is to, what's the next crop look like, and can we somehow forecast it? Because a lot of these we haven't seen coming so early, or even players later in their careers going deep into a Slam who haven't had that opportunity. So it's tough to get your head around women's tennis at the moment, but the depth is there. It's extraordinary. I mean, you really feel, for Sabalenka and Sakari losing those two semis, and, they were trying to be gracious in defeat, but the pure disappointment, you could forgive them for maybe not being as gracious at the net and just focusing on themselves. But that was an opportunity that they probably think, gee, it's gone begging. Here's an opportunity to make a Grand Slam final. We're opposite two teenagers, but you wonder whether, certainly in Sakari's case, she'll be able to get back there. You feel like Sabalenka's going to certainly stay around the mark.
Yes, certainly. I mean, clearly they're so hard to win, as we know. Like, going into the tournament, Ash Barty, a deserving favourite, but you look and you go, well, at you look at three to one or so. I think she was started as a favourite, and you think, well, that's under the odds, because you look at Serena, she won one in every 3.5, 3.7 or so majors that she played in terms of the average. So, and she's the greatest player in the modern era. So it's just so hard for them to win. So for Sabalenka, does she recover from that sort of mental breakdown that she had in the mental lapse that she had in that semi-final? Maybe she doesn't. She certainly went away in that last game against Fernandez. Sakari didn't quite bring it like we sort of, she's such a powerful player, great physique, moves very well. But again, that opportunity may not present again. It's, you have to clinch them when they do arrive. I do look back at the junior draw. We've seen it this week when these two played. They played at Wimbledon, back in 2018, I think it was, in the second round of the junior event. Then Raducanu goes on to get beaten by Swiatek in the quarterfinal. Now we see how superb a player she is, a French Open champion, and clearly another outstanding young woman with tremendous variety. Those junior draws are very strong. What I also wonder, though, is the last 2 years with the impact that COVID-19's had in terms of juniors and in terms of the depth and the quality of players able to go. We know that Australian players haven't been able to go overseas to play the juniors. I think we had one boy in junior events this year. So will they stand up? Will they stack up as much in the future? Will we have junior champions coming from the draws in the last couple of years? Potentially, but I'm not as convinced, because we know that not everyone's been able to get to places to play.
Well, that's right. Well, I was looking at just Raducanu's path, going back. Obviously, 2020 was just a tough year for, everyone to play. But, I mean, she only played, I think, 2 events. Back end of 2019, she won an ITF 25 that sort of elevated her from the 500s to the 300s. Then the ranking stayed about the same, like it did for so many players through last year. And, she only steps out after, about 15, 18 months of not playing on the ITF tour. In that 2 or 3 weeks leading into Wimbledon, got a wild card into a WTA, a wild card into an ITF, wins a couple of matches, but our very own Storm Sanders, I think, at Nottingham as part of that. And then her team, went to the LTA and, tried to put a good case for her to get a wild card. And she got that over some more highly ranked British players, but it's certainly been justified. I mean, I love the backstory too. Romanian father, Chinese mother, born in Toronto, goes to the UK when she was 2, and you got Layla with an Ecuadorian father, superstitious. He wasn't there, but he probably speaking 5 or 6 times a day. Filipino mother, she was as composed in the stands as her daughter on court, which was fantastic. So you love all the backstories, and it's no shortage of hard work. I mean, to get to this stage, you've got to put in the time. It's a real sacrifice and dedication.
Certainly, citizens of the world, and I think that only broadens their appeal to sponsors. We know that Fernandez can speak 3 different languages. If she can make a run and become a number 1 or a Grand Slam champion, she will be marketable across the world. So will Raducanu. Clearly, they'll be very, very marketable. I watched earlier today on, I suppose, a former coach at the LTA had footage of Raducanu serving at 9 years old or 10 years old, and already you could see the outstanding technique of that serve, and that serve held up so well. I thought, throughout the tournament, and again today, I think she made something like 69% of first serves, in terms of her delivery. I thought it was just a brilliant serve.
Yeah.
As we saw, indeed, on match point, what a way to finish off, her third match point, to finish off with that ace, perfectly timed, perfectly delivered.
It's a perfect shot, isn't it? I mean, you're just trying to get over the line. You don't want to be going through another taxing rally. So suck in the deep breaths, hit your spot, and sign off in style. It was superb today. So you wonder now the legacy of just this final, what this will do to resonate around the huge ecosystem of tennis, of players sitting in the 200s, the 300s down, even our Australians here who are, in a tough, brutal sport, while she's going about their business every week. Some are more on the radar than others, and some are often going down by the narrowest of margins that decide whether they progress through a draw or not, or make a bit of a breakthrough. But you wonder whether that might just inspire those sitting around that mark. This could be possibly me.
Well, I think we've seen with Olivia Gadecki some really good results, and you should be of a comparable age. Certainly in the ITFs, the 25s, as you touched on, in the 15s. I think she's been producing some sound results. We saw her promise in Melbourne in February through the summer. I thought it was a really encouraging sign. So you do hope that by seeing these teenagers, people that they've played against, peers that they know they can either beat or can certainly compete with, doing so well against senior competitors, champions of the sport, multiple Grand Slam winners, as Fernandez beat through the week, and then was beaten by a person who played exceptionally well, obviously today and the entirety of the last 3 weeks. That should encourage them. It's just to touch on how astonishing it really is and how young these women are. I did like one on social media today, a professor in England, Claire Hopkins, who stated that 3 months ago, her daughter and Emma were sitting their maths class, getting their A levels, which is equivalent, I suppose, to our year 12. One went crowd surfing and broke an arm. The other goes on to win the US Open title. You don't know where fate can take you, but if you're a talented Australian, 18-year-old, 17-year-old, 16-year-old, if you've got the high performance exemption, if you're working and training at the moment at the national academies around the country, or even with your own private coaches, I know that I see someone on my adjoining court, there's a couple of younger players out there with their coaches working at the moment. Strive for the stars, aim for the stars, because clearly it doesn't happen, obviously very rare, and it might be a 1 in a million chance, but there is that 1 in a million chance you can make it.
Dare to dream. Dare to dream is what sport's all about, absolutely. So the women's is done. We've got a bit more of the season to play out, obviously, before players even contemplate coming to our shores in January. It's a fascinating time ahead, isn't it? Ashore Liquor Wounds, Indian Wells is sort of the next big tournament, start of October. Whether Serena is going to be able to come back and play another major in Australia. I mean, there's a lot of questions to be answered. We've seen a little resurgence from an Angie Kerber this year, the teenagers coming through. There's some names that we can't even forecast right now who might even emerge on our shores come January. So there's a lot to like about women's tennis right now. It's in a really healthy space.
Absolutely. And look, the one thing we can say from the, I suppose, the local perspective is that with Sabalenka being beaten in the semi-final, I think that it effectively guarantees Ash will be the season-ending number one for the third time in succession, which puts her in the company of legends. Evert, Graf, Navratilova, and Serena Williams, obviously, 3 times number one, the top 5. Like, she is right there as an outstanding player in terms of longevity and consistency and excellence at number 1. Indian Wells will be interesting to see what happens there. It's a reasonable treble that she's going for. To win Miami, to win Cincinnati. If she was able to add in Wells, the 3 premier hardcourt events outside the US Open in one season, it would be an astonishing achievement by the Australian, I've got to say.
No doubt. Well, that is the challenge for everyone, to match her consistency. It's certainly tough for Ash to just back up and win slam after slam. Women's tennis is not allowing that at the moment, but certainly the most consistent player on tour for match wins and titles this year. So hopefully a nice finish to what has been a tough period to be on the road for so long with a great team around her and those supporting her back home. She'll be looking forward to getting back on Australian shores. But that that is something also for the Australian players that they've got to sort of deal with in the next period, isn't it? Is getting home, and when they do decide to come home, and the quarantining here. And anyway, Walshy, that'll all play out, and we'll discuss that a little bit down the track. But just before I let you go, we're on the verge of Novak winning the calendar slam to pass Roger and Rafa for the most majors. Rod Laver will be in the house. He has been sublime. He hasn't had it all his own way, as we know, and you rarely get that against the level of competition in men's tennis. But can he win one more and put the icing on the cake?
I think, it will not be easy because Medvedev, as we know, has been a superb, supreme hardcourt player for the last 3 seasons, particularly in the US where the courts really suit him. You know, a finalist there a couple of years ago against Rafael Nadal. If we have a final of that quality tomorrow, I think it'll be absolutely immense. When 6-4 on the 5th 2 years ago, Medvedev pushed him. We hope for that rather than the Australian Open of this year where he was just blown off the court by Novak and didn't really deliver. It will be an anomaly if Novak gets beaten because we just see how relentlessly excellent he is every single match. 27 in a row at Grand Slam level this year. It's a phenomenal performance. I thought he was superb against Zverev. I thought that was truly, one of the great matches, compelling third set, fantastic fight back by Zverev. Then to get the upper hand in the 5th set like he did, just the mark of a champion. He'll be kicking back in New Jersey as we speak. I'm sure he's probably been in the hyperbaric chamber to get some oxygen pumping, relaxed. It'll be fascinating tomorrow, but I do think he's clearly the man to beat as well as Medvedev has been playing.
Going to be compelling. Let's see what Daniil brings to the table. And you're right, that Australian Open final went that quickly. I can't even remember it. It's that long ago, and it was so quick on Rod Laver. Thanks, Walshy. We'll reconvene after the men's final.